craving is actually not craving, it's thirst. The word for craving, tanha, actually means thirst. Now thirst itself is suffering. That's the problem, that it's not like because you have thirst, then you will suffer. No, it's not true. You have thirst and that means you suffer. Already when we are thirsty, hey, I want to drink water, that itself is suffering. So craving is directly causing suffering because craving itself is suffering. And the craving is caused by the ignorance that I am here and that I need to quench that thirst. There is the understanding that there is no me and there is no need to quench the thirst, and therefore there is no craving. So, for example, for an arahant, an enlightened being, or even the Buddha, they can be thirsty, and we have clear evidence in our scriptures that the Buddha was thirsty. In Parinibbana Sutta, Dika Nikaya, I think number 22, and indeed, the Buddha was thirsty, and not just that, like that he would be thirsty, he even acted upon that, He told Venerable Ananda, Ananda, I am thirsty, bring me water, So, even an enlightened being can have thirst, but this is not what is meant by tanha. There is a big difference between an enlightened being's thirst and between an unenlightened being's thirst. And an unenlightened being's thirst, craving, is dependent on the ignorance. So if they do not quench their thirst, the suffering will be more. The suffering will increase. And not only that the suffering will increase, but it will lead to unskillful deeds, such as killing, stealing, adultery, telling lies, or drinking alcohol. Now for an enlightened being, although there might be thirst, the thirst will never turn into breaking of any of the precepts. Moreover, it will never turn into greed, hatred, ignorance. So they might be thirsty, but they would not take water for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. They would not buy a dam, or a large water tank so that they can quench their thirst throughout their life. Because they're not greedy, They know, hey, there is a need for thirst and there is a need for water. So if there is some water, I'll take some, But they would never steal for that. They would never kill or do any other misdeed for it. So thirst causes suffering not only by the fact that thirst itself, but that the craving itself is suffering, but it causes it also through the deeds, the mental, verbal and bodily deeds that are committed because of that craving. So the person who is craving, they increase, their suffering increases, and therefore they would kill. Now because they kill, then that is suffering. Like killing a living being is suffering. For some, right after that, for some before, during, or right after that, and for some who are more ignorant of the consequences, it comes later in this life or in one of the next lives. Now some people don't believe in next lives, but there's not much I can do with that. The Buddha became Buddha after he has seen his past lives and after he has seen past and future lives of the other living beings. So the Buddha's Buddhahood itself is partially dependent on understanding and accepting the reality of rebirth. So if somebody doesn't like to believe in rebirth, then for me it is inconceivable that they would believe in anything else because the Buddha himself is Buddha based, or let's say with the foundation of the so-called right view, namely that there is rebirth, that your bad deeds will lead to suffering in this life or in the next life, your good deeds will lead to suffering in this life or next life. So the craving can cause suffering in this life or next life through its unskillful nature. And therefore, the Buddha suggests that we get rid of craving. The Buddha explains that there are three kinds of craving, and if we explore them, we will be able to see more how they cause suffering. So there is craving for sensual pleasures, craving for existence, craving for non-existence. Now all of these three kinds of cravings are dependent on the illusion of self, that I will enjoy sensual pleasures, I will exist, or I will not exist. So the greed for sensual pleasures, which is pretty much what I've just explained, causes suffering, not just through the fact that there is the greed, that there is the craving, but also because of the potential misdeeds caused to satisfy that craving. Craving for existence, the idea that I will be like this, I will be like that, I will be a god, I will be a Brahma, or I will be a CEO, or anything like that, that itself causes suffering because there is this expectation, and the expectation might not get fulfilled. And when the expectation is not fulfilled, that is suffering. Now, even if the expectation is fulfilled, in most of the cases there is an effort. There is an effort needed to accomplish that craving. So some people say, but I enjoy trying, I enjoy making that effort. Yes, that's right. I'm happy that somebody enjoys making an effort. But there is this little problem that whatever they are trying to achieve now, in our Buddhist understanding, they already achieved billions of times before in the past. So they're making the effort to achieve something that they already achieved so many times, and they already lost so many times because of all kinds of reasons, not just death, but also because of thieves, or because of another young handsome man who just is more pleasing to that girl, or anything else. So it's very nice if somebody enjoys making an effort to satisfy their craving, but if the result of their craving is something that will not satisfy their craving in the general sense, I mean all craving, all in all, then I don't think that's very useful if we look at it ultimately with the previous lives. Now there is another facet to this craving suffering problem, and because some people could say, hey, I don't care, I can billion times I can try, to get a good breakfast, to get a good dinner, for billion times I enjoy, that strong effort to go to buy my package of cigarettes and enjoy them. But according to the Buddhist scriptures, you will not always get the opportunity to make that effort. There will be times when you may fall into the world of animals. And I don't think that as an animal you'll go to a shop and buy your package of cigarettes. I don't think that as a ghost, or as a being in hell, or even as a deity, although deity might enjoy more pleasures than cigarettes, this would be possible. So considering the fact that human life is not the default, I would not suggest that effort is good. What does it mean, human life is not default? So many people, because they are people, because they have this craving like, I am a human, there are many humans around me, therefore being a human is default. But being human is not default. In Buddhist cosmology, there are 31 worlds in which one can be born, and one of them is human life. So there are another 30 worlds in which one can be born. And the idea that human life is the default, so if there is no other reason for being born in hell, no other reason for being born in heaven, then what remains is the default, you know? By default, I'll be born as a human. So no, that's not the Buddhist teachings. By default, you're born in hell. That's the default in Buddhism. So if there is nothing, if there is no merit, if there is no good deed to be born as a human or as a deity or anything like that, then by default, there is hell. Because there is just so much to do in hell, you know. In hell, you can die a billion times and you still are in hell and you don't get anywhere. So hell is the easiest to get to, and therefore hell also has the most beings, and therefore if we had to find a default, and in fact there is no default because everything is caused, everything is conditioned, but if you had to find default, at least by the characteristic that it's the most time, you know, that it takes most time, that we spend most time there, then it would be hell. So there we can see how craving is attaching you to the cycle of rebirth, and thereby, in the majority of cases, to the hell, and therefore